Here is my new patch. Oh, what a mess. I'm Terry of Axis of Woe, and I would like to ask you, do you miss an exquisite instrument in your modular setup? I think I found one, at least one that is according to my musical taste, and that's the Resonant Equalizer by Random Source, the Black Low Pass Gate by Erica Synths, and Afterneath by Earthquaker Devices, the last one being a reverb that is a lot more than a reverb. Those three combined are a beautiful instrument in my mind, and in this video I would like to demonstrate some of the sounds, some of the qualities and properties. At noon there is no boost. It is, one should say, unity gain. When you turn it counterclockwise until 9 o'clock, you have a decrease in boost up to 12 decibel, and beyond that it closes. If you start at noon and go clockwise, you will boost the signal at the maximum 12 dB at 3 o'clock. Beyond 3 o'clock, that band will self-resonate, and the band is not limited to, say, 2.8K. This is a reference point, and the band is not discrete, so to speak. Let's see what this does when I increase the feedback, which is now an inverted kind of feedback that gives a sort of phasing effect. I cannot explain that effect because I'm not an engineer, but there's an inversion, and it creates a different kind of sonical result, which to me is beautiful. As you can see, there are two inputs with its own dedicated attenuator. There are two outputs and two comb filters available. Oh, I love that sound. Yes. What I have done is taken the one out signal and patched it into the reverb as a normal out through a VCA. This output, however, is patched into a VCA, then back into input number 2, which increased the feedback effect. This feedback patch, this cable going into this after passing through a VCA, is triggered occasionally. So now that feedback loop is not effective. That was the normal feedback loop. Oh, it's so beautiful. Let's increase this band too. Past 3 o'clock, it will self-resonate. Listen. Let's decrease it. Let's increase this one. Max. So, as you can hear, this is much like an instrument. You do not have CV over each band. Some people like to modulate everything or a complete CV control over everything. But let's see this as an instrument that you have to play. Now, let's decrease the offset on the low pass gate. It should become darker when the trigger activates it. Darker. You could hear that pitch changing effect. That was the drag modulation. I'm modulating the drag. The drag knob on Afterneath will become more echo-like if you turn it to the left, and more reverb-like if you turn it this way. You can hear the pitch changes when I drag it or turn it. That's because the buffer containing the music is affected according to the manual. Now there are... Oh, this is my kind of sound. I could listen to this for a week. With some modulation, some additional modulation perhaps. This drag control behaves differently depending on the mode. The mode, there are 9 modes. It has 9 different modes. The first 3 of them are unquantized. The first of those 3 is completely unquantized but smooth. The second one, unquantized but with a slew effect, so that the module mimics a vintage British tape delay when you turn the vary speed knob, varying the speed. And the effect is achieved by making the drag input lag behind. The third of the unquantized modes is true to the 1 volt per octave scale made famous by Modular. So you can control the Afterneath module like a voltage controlled oscillator. And this is the first of the quantized modes, is the chromatic scale. This is the major scale, minor scale, pentatonic scale, and finally octaves and fifths, and ultimately everything you hear will be an octave. Just octaves. Let's listen to this one, causing that accentuated drag effect, mimicking a vintage British tape delay, where you adjust the vary speed knob. Let's adjust the lower frequencies, just below 3 o'clock. Go up. Let's see. Did you hear that? It sounded like a wooden instrument, some kind of flute. And that is one of the qualities of the Resonant EQ. It resembles the harmonics and timbres of wooden instruments. Let's go nuts. Everything at max except the lower bands. And the feedback at 3 o'clock. A little past 3 o'clock. And let's increase the offset. That is bringing in brighter tones. Speaking of brighter tones, this dampen button, knob, I should say, is a sort of a treble. To the right, clockwise, it brings in darker tones. Counterclockwise, lighter tones, brighter ones. So having increased those, let's keep it on the left side. Yeah, definitely brighter, right? Notice that I turned the resonant off. That is because this low pass gate goes into a device creating feedback, and with this producing feedback as well, using resonance is a bit too much. Oh, it gives me the chills. When I listen to this particular patch, which, however, will be the second track on my Eurorack album to be released next spring, I think about the theater macabre in some bombed out city, where people playing this play or acting in this play are desperately seeking some escape from the realities of their surroundings, like a comic relief, but without any laughter. I appreciate dark music, dark tones. Of course, there should be some contrast. Contrast is very important in music, but dark tones bring with them the kind of world that I see or hear about every day, and it's sort of a comfort, like a soundtrack to the world we are living in now. Notice too that I have not used the reflect send jack. I just put something into the reflect return. And into the reflect return is this tone you hear now in the background. This one, Haunting. It comes from Tides by Mutable Instruments, adding to the eerie musical landscape produced by the other modules. Notice this from Tides into Reflect Return. This input is now attenuated by this knob. If I disconnect this will affect the internal feedback loop or feedback circuit. Let's put it a little bit to the left. Bring in this one as well. Yes, let's go nuts. One thing I haven't told you is that this that you hear now is the wet signal from Earthquake Devices Afterneath. The dry signal is gone. I used the activated dry kill. So let's bring in the dry signal. This is the mix between the wet and the dry, so it's a little bit on the wet side. Increased offset. Let's make it even darker. That vibrato sound is coming from the Pico VCO. Yes, that's a little bit too much, isn't it? So let's decrease this one and this. When it comes to diffuse, this creates this separates the delays. So a reverb is, in a nutshell, is in a nutshell a lot of delays, short delays, mimicking how a room reacts to sound. Clockwise, diffuse is diffuse. That means there's very little separation between the delays. Bring it counterclockwise and the delays will be more discrete, separated. The length can be interpreted as the tail of the reverb. Without this cable attached to reflect return, the reflect knob is no longer an attenuator but will control the regeneration of the reverb. Past noon it will go into self-oscillation. That is, if it's combined with length. So with the length being past noon and this past noon without the cable, it will start to self-oscillate at some point. Let's bring it down, no tail. Well, without the tail, I think this particular patch becomes mundane. I hope you have enjoyed this examination of Res EQ, Black Low Pass Gate and Afterneath, and that you have a better understanding of how these three can be an instrument. And I find that these three are a very potent instrument, and I will certainly use them in the coming patches when I make my Eurorack album to be released next spring. Yes, I think that's it, and we will be seeing each other in the next one.